Good morning to everyone except the PGA Tour. How we living out there today? There's big news in the world of professional golf. We are going to talk about the merger between the PGA Tour and Live Golf, the Saudi-backed Live Golf Tour, in just a moment. You've got phone calls that are already waiting for me when I walked into this studio, so we'll get to those here in just a second. If you've got thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1045, that's the number if you would like to join us in our discussion today. Titans on the practice field. We got mandatory minicamp. I'll slide out there right after we wrap up at 1. But in the meantime, we got to talk about this golf story. So this happened not even an hour ago, maybe just about an hour ago, as we're getting the radio show started. News from CNBC is who first breaks the story of the PGA Tour, who has been fighting off the advances of the Saudi-backed Live Tour. They are now in agreement as to a merger. And how many people today have nothing but egg on their faces? For all the, and listen, I think media, speaking as a member of the media, I think that they look just as foolish today in the way that this was discussed. I mean, are we even a calendar year from the emergence of the Live Golf Tour? Or has it been over a year at this point?
Since Phil was the villain?
Yeah. I mean, it can't be much more than that, though. But the PGA, these are the bullet points, okay? The PGA Tour is agreeing to merge with their recent rival, Live Golf. Of course, it's backed by the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, which is controlled by the Saudi Crown Prince, which, of course, has its own problems. The proposed merger comes after the PGA Tour and Live Golf have been embroiled in lawsuits regarding antitrust claims, which, of course, this would remove any pending litigation. And now you have to decide whether the thing that we have all been trying to put off in sports, or I guess we've been talking about this within the world of college football as well, is this not just another story of money always wins? Because that's what it feels like to me. I know that's an awfully cynical way to look at sports, but when the business of sports continues to tell you one thing over and over and over again, that it doesn't matter your moral objections, it doesn't matter the way that you felt about traditions or certain things that have been in place for year over year and may benefit the fan more than they benefit the bottom line of the entity that you're a fan of, and yet money wins every time. That's what my big takeaway from all this. Can you play me that Jay Monahan sound that you sent to the group not a couple of minutes ago? This is the commissioner of the PGA Tour, not quite 365 days ago, being asked in an interview about the PGA Tour and the conflict with Live Golf.
I want to ask you about this. There was a story that was first reported in the New York Post yesterday by Brian Wacker about a 9/11 coalition of families and survivors of the 2001 terrorist attacks. 9/11 Families United sent a letter to the representatives of Phil, Dustin, Bryson, Reed, and others, quote, expressing their outrage towards the golfers for participating in the new league and accusing them of sports washing and betraying the United States, end quote. And that's gotten a lot of steam over the last 24 hours. That story first reported again in the New York Post. How much did you talk to your players about the possible ramifications if they sign on with the new league?
Well, I talked to players. I've talked at a player meeting, and I've talked to a number of players individually for a long period of time. And I think you'd have to be living under a rock to not know that there are significant implications. And as it relates to the families of 9/11, I have two families that are close to me that lost loved ones. And so my heart goes out to them. And I would ask, any player that has left or any player that would ever consider leaving, have you ever had to apologize for being a member of the PGA Tour?
You do now because you're in bed with the Saudis. That is at the crux of the people, because, conflict of interests are everywhere, right? Every time I look at an Apple product, I have a conflict of interest. So let me not morally grandstand about dealing with entities or countries or buying products made in countries that have human rights issues and violations, because I would be a hypocrite in the same way that the vast majority of us all would be. But how can you hear those comments and not just be a little disgusted? The sentiment that he is trying to express in that interview with Jim Nantz, a league partner who is asking a question that is as diplomatically couched as humanly possible. It's a correct question by Jim, absolutely. And it's not like CBS is going to put Jay Monahan in a position that he has not been adequately prepared for with a question like that. But the PGA they've just taken the same bag that they dragged golfers that left for the LIV Tour for taking. That's what this is. And how, whether this affects the way that people consume golf. Have you ever watched a LIV event? I mean, they just got a television partner in the CW, but I cannot say that I've even seen highlights anywhere. It's not like they show them on SportsCenter, do they?
I've had it on in my house from time to time.
I think that, I don't know what this necessarily means for the structure of the PGA. I don't know how much of LIV is going to be incorporated into the PGA, or if it's just going to be the PGA funded by the Saudi Arabian government.
I want to know who initiated this.
Well,
what was the first modicum of conversation that was a step towards PGA and LIV coming together, and who did it come from?
And I want to know at what point somebody got to Rory McIlroy. You remember that? How loud Rory was at the start of this whole thing.
Rory's probably finding out on social media like it appears most PGA Tour golfers are.
I would be, but have you been paying attention to the messaging around Rory? Like, I only have been following this as a storyline because one of the podcasts that I listen to on a daily basis, they talk a lot of golf. And it's Tony Kornheiser's podcast, as a matter of fact. Tony Kornheiser was alleging, how can Rory McIlroy sleep at night? Months ago, for the way that he's pivoted so hard on the messaging around LIV, where he was one of the most vehement attackers of the Saudi-backed LIV Tour. And now, since then, the comments have been significantly couched. I think that Rory McIlroy, somebody got to Rory and said, hey, man, we're trending this way. There are a lot of people who are going to look really, really dumb once this deal goes down. And I'm speculating, perhaps recklessly here. But I think that big of a 180 by somebody like Rory, somebody who's been so front-facing, somebody who's been so strident in advocating against this, I feel like Rory McIlroy has been made aware of this for some time at this point, among many others involved in LIV Tour. And who is having a better day than Brooks Koepka?
Phil Mickelson.
Yeah. Any of them. Because not only did they get the life-changing money, they get to keep everything that they wanted anyway. All the guys who were morally morally opposed to leaving for LIV, who didn't take the money. You think Tiger's pissed at himself today? Tiger got offered so much cash. And maybe Tiger Woods is the rare one in this conversation that doesn't, can actually be above. It was damn near. I don't remember the exact figures on the Tiger offer. Perhaps we'll look that up here in just a second.
Like $700 million.
It was something outrageous. It was close to $1 billion. The guys who took the moral stand here lose.
Do they, though?
Yes.
They're just going to be making the same amount?
I don't know that they're going to be making the same amount.
Doubt
but
that.
They didn't hit the gold rush, right?
No, definitely not.
You know what I'm saying?
And Phil.
But because they were on principle. Right?
Yeah.
That, I think, is what this conversation, we're going to dig into this.
For the good of the game.
This is a massive story. For the good of the game, for the integrity of the sport, bleep your integrity. Here's all of my Saudi oil money. Do what I say. And the PGA waited a year and was like, all right.
And nobody got dragged more than Phil.
Nobody.
Not one single golfer, because he was the first.
Not even Greg Norman.
No.
Who has been, Phil is now the face of this, or has been the biggest face of this, but not even Greg Norman caught as much, I almost said a bad word, caught as much hell as Phil Mickelson did. Myself included. I couldn't believe what was happening. I don't feel like I've become that much more jaded in a year, but now I'm looking around and being like, yeah, money wins.
Some of the response today, Brett Batchelor, our former coworker here at the Zone, big golf guy, has been sending us some of these responses from PGA Tour golfers. Wesley Bryan tweeting, love finding out info on Twitter. This is amazing. Y'all should be ashamed and have a lot of questions to answer. I feel betrayed and will not be able to trust anyone within the corporate structure of the PGA Tour for a very long time. Mackenzie Hughes says, nothing like finding out through Twitter that we're merging with the tour we said we would never do that with.
Yep.
Colin Morikawa says, I love finding out morning news on Twitter.
So maybe Rory is one of these that's finding out, because those are big names, right? And it's not like the league, it's not the league, the PGA. It's not like the PGA necessarily has to consult the golfers before doing a business deal like this. So maybe that's just me being, in a story that's already dripping in cynicism. Maybe that's just me going over the top and saying, how much more cynical can I get on a story like this? Because that's been noticeable enough to me. I don't necessarily watch golf like that, but Rory is the big. I mean, I don't know that he's the biggest name in golf. Brooks Koepka, you could argue Dustin Johnson, but Rory is one of the top names, the top most recognizable golfers in this sport. Even if the success on the course is not something that you should hold him in the same regard as the rest of those dudes with. I think that's been one of the most interesting stories for me, because now it all makes sense to me, why he would turn so drastically after having that strong of a position. You guys want to weigh in on this? You're more than welcome to. 615-737-1045. We have Oh No at 1045. This may be the story that dominates it. What in sports made you say Oh No this weekend? We'll get to that later on. Start with Connor calling us from White House. Hey, Connor.
Mr. Nuck, if you buck, thank you for getting into this. I know that if things get wild in sports, I can count on the Buck Rising Show to dive into it. So
gotcha.
There's a lot of different ways that we could go with this. But like you're talking about with Rory, disagree maybe a little bit. I think that he just quieted down because he was a little bit over it.
Sure.
I think that his only move now is to retire. That's the only way that he can win. Otherwise, he's just recognized as a puppet for the PGA Tour throughout this entire process. You go back to the players-only meeting that Tiger flew up for. The two voices that mattered were Tiger and Rory. Tiger and Rory starting this PGL, this simulator golf league. I don't know what kind of factor that plays into this whole situation, but if Rory doesn't retire at this point, if he turns coat and becomes one of the premier players for the folks that he spoke so vehemently against, then he's only a puppet, and I think that would just absolutely ruin his legacy. Not dislike Phil's legacy now that this new organization will be a for-profit organization, whereas the PGA Tour has always been a non-for-profit organization. I see the PGA Tour players, or whatever tour players they are called now, unionizing, and Phil probably being the leader of that union because of his relationship with Scott.
Thank you, Connor. 60 seconds on the clock before the Oscars music hits. I wanted to make sure that we got that last little bit in, because he was making a really good point. This changes the structure of professional golf. If they unionize, and this has been a big complaint. They've had a lot of different complaints about various things that the PGA was not providing. This was Phil's whole thing, right? Golfers demand more, or the golfers deserve more, and so we're going to leverage the Saudi tour to make sure that the PGA can give the golfers what they want, and if not, we're going to leave. Now, Phil doesn't have to. God, can you imagine? Somebody, please, anybody, send me a picture of what Phil Mickelson's face looks like today. I'm sure he had advance warning to learn the news that Live Golf and the PGA Tour are merging. The answer to all of your questions, kid, is money. 615-737-1045 is the number. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
What should be the reaction to that? What should be the reaction to the PGA not telling golfers ahead of the announcement and everybody finding out on social media? Because I've seen a lot of reaction that the PGA has handled this very poorly. But why would that have been that much better? Because obviously the reaction would have been the same from the PGA Tour golfers, and it wouldn't have changed the outcome of it. Just so they're not blindsided by finding out on Twitter? I suppose just putting out a memo, this is happening.
Their golfers, that this was going to be the plan, and CNBC beat them to the punch with the reporting on this about an hour ago, courtesy of Lillian Rizzo, was the one that broke the news for CNBC. So apparently and I want to make sure that I get the acronyms here correct, PIF is prepared. PIF, I'm not sure what PIF stands for.
It's PIF. You call it PIF.
I don't think so.
No.
Is that true?
No, it's not.
Okay. Why are you doing that then?
I don't know. I wanted you to say it wrong for the whole show.
Like, this is like GIF.
Well, there is a right answer to that. We don't need to get into that.
Whatever PIF is prepared to invest billions of new capital into the new entity, according to CNBC's David Faber, on Tuesday. So the terms of the deal not yet disclosed. PIF governor, and I'm going to butcher this, Yasser, I'm not going to even attempt the last name, apologies, said Tuesday on CNBC's Squawk on the Street that after the merger is finalized, which he expects to be in a matter of weeks, the new board is prepared to evaluate every proposal that is presented. The aforementioned governor of PIF is slated to serve as chairman of the board. So this was news that was broken on television? Were they interviewing this person and he just gave up the goods? That's the way that this is reading. I want to make sure that I understand correctly from the context of CNBC's article here. But it sounds like he was making an appearance on one of their television programs and just kind of let it slip. As a part of the agreement, the groups will establish, quote, a fair and objective process for any players who want to reapply for membership with the PGA Tour or DP World Tour, because remember that it is not just absorbing the PGA, it also includes the DP World Tour, which is the European version of the PGA. So you will have the opportunity to reapply, Brooks Koepka and Dustin Johnson and Phil Mickelson, if you would like to, and remove any stain that they've spent the last year trying to put on your name for taking the bag. Public Investment Fund. Thank you. ZTub 1855. Tough scene. So that's the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia. Brett Batchelor chimes in via our text messages here. So a lot of new information flying in. We'll make sure that we keep you updated with the latest. So, I mean, what Liv's strategy has been successful. They've been luring top dollar or top golfers with top money. And the subject of controversy, they've already spent $2 billion reportedly investing into Liv. And now they've basically does it not? You didn't watch Game of Thrones, did you?
Of course I did.
Did you? Okay. I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember. You didn't watch Succession. That's the one.
Did not watch Succession.
Okay. So it's like bend the knee, right? Who is Daenerys Targaryen in this situation? Because it doesn't feel like it's a PGA Tour. Felt like Liv just drowned you in money. They said, we're going to stuff your face full of so much cash that you're going to have no choice but to bend the knee. How's that make you feel? If you're an American sports fan and the Saudi Public Investment Fund has just done to professional golf what it wanted to. Maybe it took a little longer than they might have planned. Maybe this was always the projection. But what's to stop? What's to stop a foreign entity like this? And maybe there is only one foreign entity like this. But what's to stop them from getting involved in the National Football League? Major League Baseball, I know people are already conflicted about the NBA's ties with China, but like it's not like this isn't already in effect in EPL, right, Lucas? Is there not Saudi money all over professional soccer in Europe?
Sure. I mean, the numbers that you're seeing on some of these contracts, like Cristiano Ronaldo and most recently Karim Benzema, the star French forward from Real Madrid, I mean, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, seemingly an endless pit of money coming out of there. Formula One, but the one common thread between every sport that it has impacted is there is great international appeal. Soccer, racing, golf.
Yep.
Not really the case for American football.
No.
So that's why I'd be slightly surprised to see that happen anytime soon.
Well, are you not seeing what the NFL is trying to do? Buddy, they've got the Jags playing 2 games in London back to
Germany,
back this year.
right.
The messaging around this has been that they want a European division.
But I think if it's going to infiltrate, for lack of a better term, an American sport sooner than later, I think basketball would be first.
And I don't, right, again, we're kind of getting into
baseball even.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Both of those sports have more international appeal at present day than does the National Football League. No, nobody's disputing that, but what does the NFL love more than any other league? Money.
Lonzo on the F&M Bank chat points out WWE has done business with Saudi money.
So we're already there. It's just like, are you good with it? I mean, your conflict, like I said, conflict of interests are everywhere. I'm looking at a variety of different, like all of the products that I have in front of me technologically are Apple. Apple has plenty of issues. I'm wearing Nike today. Nike has well-documented issues with country manufacturing in countries that have human rights issues. So where am I to draw the line if I'm a consumer of this? I imagine many of you are asking yourselves the same question. Maybe you're not. Maybe you don't give a bleep. That's what the Saudis are banking on. That's what the PGA is banking on. It's what college football is banking on with things like, and I know this is a different kind of a conversation, but there's capitalism at the core, right? It's what college football is banking on if they're going to remove things like recurring annual rivalries, right? You're not going to turn off the TV. You're still going to watch this stuff.
I saw Brett McMurphy throw out what would be the question, what would be the college football equivalent of this? Be the Big Ten and SEC merging?
I mean, it kind of felt like UCLA and USC joining the Big Ten was kind of like that. But, I mean, it would be something like the Big Ten and the SEC merging, right? Which some of you fear is not that far away from super conferences and super leagues. Whenever the next television contract comes up, right? Now, maybe the Saudis found that their television contract with the CW was not sustainable.
That's my thing in this. Yeah, I don't know that. I think it's more mutually beneficial than people think it is.
Yeah, but there's no question in terms of optics who loses.
Oh, no question. I agree with that. Absolutely. The PGA looks worse in this in every way. Indisputably.
Everybody associated with it.
Yes.
I even,
But there's something in this for LIV, right? Obviously, there's something in this for PGA, or they're not conceding this, and they're not sacrificing these optics.
Well, they can't compete.
But this is mutually beneficial. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening.
The only reason they're competing is because they have those television deals in place. But the Saudis can it's just a matter of how much time the Saudis want to spend in overpaying or overbidding for golfers at the end of their careers, right? Phil Mickelson is case in point. Brooks Koepka looked like he was at the end, and then all of a sudden he's winning majors again, and Brooks is now on the top of the world and hoping that the Florida Panthers win a game at this point.
Yeah, killed last night.
Yeah, I know. Brutal. Well, Vegas. I mean, my God. Maybe we'll talk about maybe we'll talk a little hockey later on. Colt is in Memphis up next. Hey, Colt.
Hey, guys. Lucas's earlier statement that, hey, if you would have told the PGA players that this was coming, it wouldn't change anything. I think that's probably accurate, but you've got to keep in mind over the last year and a half, 2 years, these tour players that stayed, a lot of them turned down literally tens and some of them hundreds of millions of dollars. They've been kind of carrying the water for the PGA, bashing LIV and defending the PGA Tour and the decision that they made. And here you have the tour, literally made a decision in the middle of the night, basically. And, you've got the guys that's been, defending the tour finding out about it on Twitter. So I think that's sort of the rub. It's just a big slap in the face. And then finally, this smells of something was about to come out in all that litigation, because in the statements that have been made and even in the press releases, that's one of the first things that they're saying is, this closes out the litigation. And so, there's antitrust litigation. There's something that is coming out that the PGA Tour, because this is like the biggest eat crow decision ever. So it makes me believe that the litigation was about to get really ugly for the PGA Tour, and they really were left with no choice.
It's a good point by you, Colt. It does feel like a sports version of a legal settlement, right? Before the antitrust litigation gets metered out, maybe they, as you mentioned, there's a lot of details in here that's allowing us a lot of room for speculation, because we don't specifically know whether the pending litigation was going to go in favor or go against the PGA. It could very well have pushed their decision forward to kind of cave at this point. But I think in playing that Jim Nantz clip earlier, where he's being asked, where Jay Monahan, the commissioner of the PGA Tour, is being asked about the optics of golfers can we play that audio again, Lucas? I want to make sure that we give it proper context, because the context is Saudi Arabia having involvement. 15 of the 19 September 11th hijackers, right, were from Saudi Arabia. Osama bin Laden, mastermind behind the attacks, born in the country of Saudi Arabia. It has been concluded by U.S. officials that Saudi nationals helped fund the terrorist organization Al-Qaeda that we have been talking about basically my entire adult life. Not even my entire adult life. My entire September 11th, I would have been in second grade. My entire lifetime, I've heard about this. And all the investigations didn't find that the Saudi government was outright complicit in the attacks. There's enough to kind of look around and say, okay, this is a really, really problematic situation that you've just entered in, especially for people who are directly impacted like this. And that's what Jim Nantz was asking Jay Monahan not a year ago.
I want to ask about this. There was a story that was first reported in the New York Post yesterday by Brian Wacker about a 9/11 coalition of families and survivors of the 2001 terrorist attacks. 9/11 Families United sent a letter to the representatives of Phil, Dustin, Bryson, Reed, and others, quote, expressing their outrage towards the golfers for participating in the new league and accusing them of sports washing and betraying the United States, end quote. That's gotten a lot of steam over the last 24 hours. That story first reported again in the New York Post. How much did you talk to your players about the possible ramifications if they sign on with the new league?
Well, I talked to players. I've talked at a player meeting, and I've talked to a number of players individually for a long period of time. And I think you'd have to be living under a rock to not know that there are significant implications. And as it relates to the families of 9/11, I have two families that are close to me that lost loved ones. And so my heart goes out to them. And I would ask, any player that has left or any player that would ever consider leaving, have you ever had to apologize for being a member of the PGA Tour?
You do now. 615-737-1045. My buddy Zach just sent me, he's a big golf fan, just sent me a message that Jay Monahan sent out to the PGA Tour golfers. We're going to, let me read that to you before we get back to the phones. Oh, you're going to love this. PGA Tour members, today is a momentous day for your organization and the game of golf as a whole. What? That's the lead? Sir. It goes on. The PGA Tour, your tour, oh my God, I don't think I can read this seriously, is leading the formation of a new commercial entity to unify golf, one that sees the end of the disruption and distraction that has divided the men's professional game for the better part of 3 years. Through a framework agreement, the Public Investment Fund is contributing its golf-related commercial businesses and rights, including Live Golf, along with a significant financial investment toward minority equity ownership of a new collectively held for-profit LLC. This new entity, which has not officially been given a name, will also include the PGA Tour's commercial businesses and rights, as well as those of the DP World Tour. So it basically goes on to say that, the PGA Tour Incorporated remains a 501c tax-exempt organization, on and on. But, how about that as a lead? Today is a momentous day for your organization and the game of golf as a whole. Bleep yourself.
Is it still going to be the PGA Tour?
No. Doesn't sound like
they
it.
have to come up with an entirely new...
I no longer think, based on the messaging of this, DP Tour, PGA Tour, and LIV are all going to be combined into one kind of monstrous Saudi-fueled golf tour.
Can we think of one? Can we just rearrange those letters?
I'm sure there's something offensive that we could put together based on this collection of letters. PGA, DP. Well, DP you could probably do something with. And PIF, LIV. What do you want to do here? We'll call Burton. He's still hanging around.
He'll have some ideas.
Unfortunate for him. It's probably going to be problematic, but at this point, it's just disgusting to me. That's disgusting. Blatantly disgusting. You want to talk about people who shouldn't be able to sleep at night? Sir, Jay Monahan, commissioner of the PGA, how the hell do you sleep at night? When you're opening up this thing after your golfers are finding out the news on Twitter, sending them this statement retroactively saying today is a momentous day for your organization and the game of golf as a whole, you snake. Chris in Mount Juliet is next. Hey, Chris.
Hey, fellas.
What you got?
Well, a couple questions. Number one, are they going to change any formats? I just tuned in, so I'm picking this up as you guys talk about it.
Sure.
To whereas the LIV golfers only play 3 rounds versus PGA plays 4. Is there any, obviously now you're talking about work stuff as far as the amount, which, again, could bleed into other leagues. And then the other thing would be, could the USGA say, well, you know what, we don't believe in this, so we're going to start our own league as a USGA for the, falling out for those that don't want to be a part of Saudi-invested stuff.
Yeah, Chris, at this point, we don't have the answer to those questions, right? Because it sounds like they don't have the structure.
We don't even have a name.
Right? They don't have a name, much less a format. So at this, somebody's, I need he just got in my ear and said we need to go to break, but I need you to look at Lonzo's comment on YouTube. I need you to tell me whether, as the executive producer for the Buck Rising Show, whether I can read that on FCC safe air.
This one's on you, brother.
What? You're just going to let me drown out here?
Yes.
It says LIV DP'd the PGA. Now got a break. We'll get to what in sports made you say, oh no, here in just a second. That's what we typically do at 10:45 or thereabouts on a Tuesday morning. Titans on the practice field in just about an hour from now. Mandatory minicamp underway. We'll talk about whether Kevin Byard is there or not here in just a little bit. But the golf conversation has obviously been what's dominated our show today, as I'm sure it's dominating sports coverage on every other outlet as well. We've been getting some tweets at Buck Rising is where you can tweet at. Also vote on the polls that we will update at the end of the show at Lucas Panzica if you want that as well. Waiting for Kyle, Crazy Pellet is his Twitter name. Kyle on Twitter. Waiting for Charlie and Franklin to call in about this golf situation. I wonder how happy he is that y'all are talking golf. That's been the biggest accusation against us, bud. We don't talk about anything but football, college or pro. Unless, of course, it's the biggest story in the history of that sport. Which, is this not? This is the biggest story in the history of golf. I don't think there's any disputing that. The PGA Tour has all but told us that they're going to fold in with LIV, with DP, and everything else at this point. That's fundamentally altering the structure of golf, not just the names of it, whatever we're going to call this thing. But we have no idea what the format's going to look like either. We have no idea what benefits now are going to come the players' way that they didn't have previously, which is at least the reason that Phil Mickelson cited as his biggest reason for leaving. I'm sure there'll be more information on that later on. I can't get over that statement from Jay Monahan. That's as gross as it's felt in a while. Speaking of gross, what in sports made you say, oh no?
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
Oh, no.
Oh yeah!
Real easy. 615-737-1045. We've already been talking about the thing in sports that's made you say, oh no, this week. That's what's happening with the PGA and LIV. But I got this story coming out of the NBA. Now, famously, you know that the NBA, we've been doing a lot of TMZ sports coverage here this morning already, but the NBA is the most TMZ of all the professional sports league. Not least of which is because of NBA players and their proclivity, one might say, for dating Kardashians. Did you see what Kim Kardashian did the other day?
I did not.
Kim Kardashian is now trolling her sister, Kendall Jenner, because she is wearing a T-shirt. She has custom-made a T-shirt featuring Kendall Jenner's every ex-boyfriend in the NBA that Kendall Jenner has at this point in her life been through. So, Blake Griffin, you've got Ben Simmons, you've got a variety of Ben Simmons, Jordan Clarkson. I forgot that she dated Jordan Clarkson. Kyle Kuzma, and the most recent Devin Booker. It says Kendall's starting five on it. It's just a picture of Kendall in the middle of the T-shirt, surrounded by the 5 NBA exes that she's been through at this point in her very young life. But yes, that shirt, it made an appearance apparently in season 3 of the Kardashians. That made me say, oh no, not for the Kardashians, but for the players who are being dragged for having dated a Kardashian. Yeah.
So we talked about Bill Barnwell ranking NFL off seasons a couple of weeks ago. He had the Tennessee Titans dead last, 1 through 32, and how he ranked NFL off seasons. He also had the New York Jets ranked number 23. And I saw this pop back up and was reading through it. He's kind of adding some more teams and rankings. And with the Jets ranked 23, how Barnwell does it is he writes what went right, what went wrong, and then he just kind of fleshes it out. So for the Jets, when he talks about what went right, obviously they upgraded from Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers. When he talks about what went wrong, he says they're paying a lot for that upgrade. If Rodgers gets the Jets to a Super Bowl, nobody will care what they paid, but we know they needed to upgrade at quarterback. But they also just acquired a 39-year-old quarterback who just posted the league's 26th best QBR, wedging him firmly between Matt Ryan and Russell Wilson. Okay, all right, fair enough. He goes on to say, yes, the Jets needed to upgrade at quarterback. Let's say they could have had Teddy Bridgewater, who has been perfectly acceptable for teams with great defenses in the past, with his 10 years in Minnesota and New Orleans as recent examples.
Teddy Bridgewater's been in the league for 10 years?
He says Bridgewater, Bridgewater at Louisville at this point was was a while ago.
That's his old. Which bowl game did he win? The Orange Bowl.
It was the Sugar Bowl against
Bowl.
Florida. I'm pretty sure.
Right. That's why I'm thinking orange. He because he did the post game interview with his braces on, and I was like, oh, that guy looks like a child. And now he's been in the league for 10 years. I'm old.
He says Bridgewater is 9 years younger than Rodgers and has been beloved everywhere he has gone as a pro and is still available as an unrestricted free agent. Then he says, would you rather have Rodgers than Bridgewater? Of course, but that's not the question. The Jets chose between Rodgers and someone like Bridgewater, first and second round picks, the right not to have Hackett as their offensive coordinator, and about $50 million in money to spend elsewhere on their roster per season over the next 2 years. If you don't like Bridgewater, plug in Derek Carr. Replace that $50 million with $15 million or so.
Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett, add an extra $40 million. You get the idea. He says nothing short of peak Rodgers will make this work for New York. Yes, Bill Barnwell, I am sure that selling Teddy Bridgewater to the New York Jets fan base as the upgrade over Zach Wilson would have made them say, oh, yes. No, that's not what would have happened.
It made them say?
I know peak Rodgers is what's going to get them to the Super Bowl, but that's what they're angling for.
Yeah.
That's what they're going all in on.
You know what my favorite part of the segment is? How often I organically say, oh, no, without thinking about the fact that we're doing a segment called this. We are getting nominees via the F&M Bank chat. Tyler Dial says Adam Schefter accidentally retweeting a tweet from an account named Stoned Daily this morning is my oh no. Do you see they're doing Picture Day, it's Media Day. Titans had theirs yesterday because it's mandatory. Everybody's here for minicamp. And, well, theoretically, everybody's here for minicamp. We'll find out whether Kevin Byard is here in just a little bit. But so the Commanders, they tweeted out a bunch of pictures of, like, it was like back to school pics. Like it's, I think it was Scary Terry sitting at like one of those school desks that you like slide into from the side. And there was an account that replied below the pictures of the Commanders players and just said these pictures are mid. And the account is Stone Daily saying that the pictures are mid. Adam Schefter accidentally retweeted that these pictures are mid. Oh no. 615-737-1045 is the number. We've got some calls on Live Golf to get to. We will also talk about the Tennessee Volunteers. The baseball team is hitting the road, and Vols fans are pissed about it. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11:01. Good morning from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. Breaking news this morning from CNBC. The PGA Tour has agreed to merge with Saudi-backed rival Live Golf. The deal will see the two move forward together as a larger golf enterprise. Titans are on the field today for mandatory minicamp. Select players and head coach Mike Vrabel will meet with the media in the 2 p.m. hour. You can hear it all live on Blaine and Mickey. Women's College World Series, the Tennessee Lady Vols were eliminated with a 5-1 loss against Florida State. FSU advances to the National Championship Series starting tomorrow against Oklahoma. In college baseball, it was announced this morning, Tennessee will head to Hattiesburg to take on Southern Miss in Super Regionals this weekend. A 3-game series for a spot in Omaha begins on Saturday. And the Vegas Golden Knights cruised again in Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final at home, winning 7-2 to take a 2-0 lead in the series over the Florida Panthers. It'll shift back to Florida for Game 3 on Thursday night. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second down on this Tuesday. Welcome in, welcome back. Happy to have you guys, whether you're just now joining us, watching on Zone TV, Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, or Twitch, hanging out on the radio dial. Lovely to have you as well, no matter where you're consuming us. Grateful that you're spending any part of your day with Lucas and myself. We're with you until 1 o'clock, so you can join at any point. 615-737-1045 is the number. I was cackling as the music started playing because I was looking at this clip from CBS Miami last night. Vegas Golden Knights getting the better of the Florida Panthers. That's now a 2-0 Vegas lead in the Stanley Cup Final. 7-2 last night was the final score. Vegas just been burying Florida at this point. But and her name is Samantha Rivera, the reporter doing this. I don't know how it is. Is it worth a damn as audio, Lucas? Because the visual on this is hilarious. She's a Miami sideline reporter or local television reporter who is there to report on the scene of the Panthers' loss. There is a Vegas Golden Knights fan a drunken Vegas Golden Knights fan trying to shoulder his way into the television shot. And she, with the force of Derrick Henry against Josh Norman, stiff arms a full-grown man out of the shot and says, nope, nope. Let's get into the highlights. Holding a microphone in one hand. Look, she doesn't break eye contact with the camera, to her credit. So she's got the mic in her right. She's got the Vegas Golden Knights fan stiff-armed with her left. It is one of the most impressive athletic feats I've ever seen, broadcasting or otherwise. Bravo, Samantha Rivera.
It's amazing. I mean, he doesn't even get into the shot. All you see is like his shoulder trying to force his way into the live shot. And I mean, that is incredible.
It looks like she's got him by the ear like a grandmother who's pissed at you might, right? Like just being dragged by the ear a little bit. She's got him by the side of the face, or she's holding on to something. I can't tell if that's a shirt or a what do they call them? Sweaters, whatever the case may be. But like the single,
this is a hockey jersey, yeah,
stiff arm.
She tweeted, listen, I don't give a damn what team you're rooting for. Get the hell out of my face when I'm working and respect that I'm here to do my job. Excited to get back home to some classy Panthers fans for Game 3. Shout out Samantha Rivera.
I just wish she would have thrown an elbow. Like not even the stiff arm. She was much more diplomatic about that than many other people would be. Just put a bow in the side of that dude's neck. Well done, Samantha Rivera. All right. So the biggest story of the day, obviously, Live Golf PGA Tour, DP World Tour merging. The unknown or the name of the entity at this point is unknown, but it is going to involve all three of these tours. And it is a massive concession on the part of the PGA and the DP Tour, who had initially come out with the position against the Saudi-backed Live Golf Tour. Now they're all three coming together, and they're taking even more Saudi money as a part of the investment from the private investment fund that is the general fund of the sovereign nation of Saudi Arabia. The ripple effect of this is something that we're seeing on social media in particular. The golfers did not find out when CNBC broke the initial news. There's a statement from Jay Monahan that is despicable in how it is positioned after how strongly he, as the commissioner of the PGA Tour, has been coming out against LIV Golf, and we've been taking your reaction to this. Get to some Vols baseball stuff and Titans mandatory minicamp here in just a second. But Philly Mike up next.
All right, Buck, what's going on, man? You guys do a great job.
Thank you much, Mike.
I agree with you that money talks, and I was shocked that the merger happened this quickly. I remember I took many years for the NFL and the AFL, NBA, and ABA to occur, but you'll probably see an additional major added. Probably the Saudis will probably have the ability to throw in a fifth or sixth major if you count the tour. Sawgrass event as a major, so we'll probably see that. But my biggest question for you guys is, what happens to the LPGA now? And that's all I have, man.
Yeah, that's been not really a part of the discussion. I'm looking for some news on this. There's been no reporting around the impact on the LPGA, at least not that I've seen at this point. I've Googled LPGA just to see if anybody was doing any reporting on this around it. The most recent article, anything to do with the LPGA, is about Rose Zhang winning the LPGA or winning her LPGA Pro debut. But beyond that, I haven't seen anything about the impact on the women's tour.
I mean, it's its own thing, right? Is the LPGA a PGA property?
Not based on my understanding. They're separate entities.
Yes, I think it could just continue on as normal.
Well, I mean, we don't know that, though, right? Like, I'm sure my question to follow up Mike's question, and I'm sorry that we can't give you a better answer, Mike, but at this point, again, the information is very, very new. About an hour before we came on the air, and so everything else is just being disseminated out around it. Unless there is some kind of package in place that we are unaware of, because, of course, television is why all of this is happening. The money around television is why all of this is happening. Unless there's some kind of package in place that bundles the PGA and the LPGA that I'm not aware of, I would think that the LPGA is able to operate independently of that if they do, in fact, have their independent media deals, which has been my understanding, but I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm not as familiar with the landscape of golf and media partnerships as I am with pro football, for example, given that that's the league that I cover on the day-to-day. Now, the question here becomes, what is Saudi, if so, say the LPGA is not involved in this situation, is that because Saudi Arabia has a particular stance on women in sports? Because that, I think, is not, it's not beyond the realm of possibility to be thinking about that as a portion of that conversation. It's really, really complicated what you're getting into. This is what happens when countries with human rights issues get involved in the mainstream sport, right? Sports washing. Well, your money's good, but how good is it if you're going to denigrate women's sports in a particular kind of way? And that's the question that I think we're all, one of many that we're waiting to see the shoe drop on is, all right, what's next for all of these leagues? What are you going to call this new tour? Because then, I mean, it does seem a bit half-baked, right? Now, maybe they were going to roll this out in a timely fashion, and CNBC just dunked on them by breaking the news. Well done by the reporter for CNBC who had who broke the story initially, and I'll pull the article back up so I can attribute proper credit. But CNBC was first on this. So the LPGA, I think it's just kind of hanging in the balance, or not necessarily hanging in the balance of this, and unless such time as there is that the media deals indicate that they would have to be folded into this as well, but there's been no mention of the LPGA. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. What do you want to say about Tennessee? Vols fans are pissed. They're going to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. They're going to, I think Vols fans thought that they might end up with a Knoxville Super Regional, it does not appear that is going to be the case. So we'll get into the details on that, why Vol fans are pissed about it, and what that means for the University of Tennessee as they try and advance through to the College World Series coming up next. 6-1. So it doesn't take a lot for Tennessee Vols fans to get slighted, it would seem. It is always funny when you see it manifest, though, in real time. The NCAA baseball was announcing the super regionals, the setups for each of the super regionals on the NCAA baseball Twitter account. Now, you see the Gainesville Super Regional, Gamecock baseball, you got the Gators, 13 responses under a tweet announcing that. Fort Worth Super Regional, Indiana State, my Sycamores. And TCU, 19 responses under that. Scroll up a little further, and there's the announcement that Tennessee will be participating in the Hattiesburg Regional, Super Regional rather, and that they will be taking on Southern Miss. Lucas, you want to guess if I've told you 13 responses and 19 responses to the previous two, how many responses do you think there are from Vols fan on that announcement tweet?
My guess is going to be 434.
403.
No way. It's in the 400s. Wow.
405. It's still climbing.
And counting.
They're pissed.
Yes, they are.
So explain to me why they feel so slighted.
Well,
because I understand that there was a percentage chance that you were going to be able to host the Super Regional if you're Tennessee, and I understand why you would be upset by that.
It seemed likely.
Why have we gone full conspiracy theory now?
It seemed likely Tennessee would host a Super Regional because one of two things could have happened in the Auburn Regional. The Auburn Regional Championship was yesterday between Penn and Southern Miss. If Penn had defeated Southern Miss yesterday, it would be a no-doubter. Tennessee would be hosting the Super Regional this weekend against Penn, playing for a spot in Omaha. And then you thought if Southern Miss defeated Penn in the Auburn Regional, then Tennessee would still have a very good chance at hosting the Super Regional because the factors that it comes down to are RPI, strength of schedule, facilities, the stadium, the infrastructure of the city, if it can accommodate fans, hotels, all of those things. And Tennessee felt like it had the upper hand in at least most of those categories. Apparently not the case for the NCAA Baseball Selection Committee, who is obviously sending Tennessee to Hattiesburg this weekend. Game 1 will be Saturday afternoon, Game 2 on Sunday, and then an if necessary game Monday to determine who goes to the College World Series. And I'm with you that most of the time, the rhetoric from Tennessee fans of they're all out to get us is a little ridiculous.
I do love it, though.
I mean, every time like an ESPN analyst says something or says something incorrect, right, makes a mistake.
Jordan Rodgers has always hated the Vols.
ESPN hates the Vols. Everybody knows that. Like ESPN sends out a memo every month, an email to all of its employees. Hey, remember, we hate Tennessee, so make sure you get this wrong about this. So I think that is ridiculous, but in this case, it is hard for me to figure out how they came to this conclusion.
You're one of them.
The only thing that makes sense to me is that the capacity at Southern Miss's ballpark is about 1,000 more than Tennessee's. But otherwise, Tennessee has a better RPI. Tennessee has a better strength of schedule, a better resume. And obviously, Knoxville, it stands to reason. I've never been to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, but Knoxville likely has more infrastructure, hotels, accommodations, etc.
You're just doing that because it's Mississippi.
Than Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I probably am. But then I see this. Spittin' Seeds 247 is a college baseball account on Twitter. And they put a little graphic up of the NCAA Baseball Selection Committee. They say, so, below is the selection committee. I hope I am saying these names correctly. Jay Artigues, a member of the selection committee, who is the athletic director at Southeastern Louisiana University. And then Bill McGillis is another member of the selection committee, who is currently the AD at the University of San Diego. And he says, Artigues' son is on the Southern Miss baseball team, and Bill McGillis used to be the Southern Miss athletic director.
No.
So that is where the conspiracy is coming from, that two members of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-man selection committee, 20% of the NCAA Baseball Selection Committee has a direct tie to Southern Miss, one of which being that a member of the team is the son of one of the members of the selection committee. So that is the collusion. That is the conspiracy that Tennessee fans are talking about. But it does, other than the capacity being larger, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
No, the numbers here, if you're going to give me an argument, give me the argument numerically, right?
Yeah.
Because I was reading Mike Wilson last night, our buddy Mike Wilson at the Knoxville News Sentinel, basically making the case for it's going to be Southern Miss. It's just a question of who's hosting before the announcement was made earlier this morning. Vols have a higher RPI than Southern Miss. They're ranked 12th over the 18th ranked Golden Eagles. They had a higher RPI at the end of the regular season, after the conference tournaments, and following the regional. The SEC also had a higher league RPI than the Sun Belt. The committee leaned heavily into the RPI to make its national seed selections and the bracket. So if that's the formula that you're going to provide me with, then why not apply if I'm making the case for Tennessee, right? If I'm going to, put a little less tinfoil together in my hat while I'm coming up with conspiracy theories and citing former, Southern Miss athletic directors and children on the teams and things like that, then the numerical argument is the best one.
I'm just putting out all the information.
No, you're putting out the disinformation. You're spewing.
Is it disinformation?
No, it's
Did
not
I say
disinformation.
something that wasn't factual? That's all. I didn't say that this is the reason that it's a conspiracy. I'm just saying the things that are facts.
You're putting. This is a very familiar strategy. I feel like I'm experienced in this before, and with the political or with the presidential elections right around the corner, I feel like you're hitting the sweet spot.
Puka says on the F&M Bank chat, come on, Lucas. Southern Miss's coach is retiring, and they have been to Omaha. That's fine, but I didn't realize that was a factor in who gets to host a Super Regional. It is true that Southern Miss head baseball coach Scott Berry in his 14th season is coaching his last year, a Southern Miss legend. But him retiring, I'm not sure why that would give Southern Miss the nod. Southern Miss having been to Omaha before, Tennessee's been to Omaha before. I'm not really seeing, other than the capacity being bigger at Southern Miss in the ballpark.
And that should matter.
Sure. That is the only tick in the Southern Miss box that I can see as far as.
No, I mean, they won the conference tournament. They won more games.
Oh, sure. But is the resume better than Tennessee's?
No.
Okay, so if we're looking at resume, RPI, strength of schedule, and accommodations, those all are under that Tennessee umbrella. And sure, capacity is under the Southern Miss umbrella, without a doubt. Another reason Tennessee fans are upset is that Tennessee baseball's allotment of tickets for the Hattiesburg Super Regional is only going to be 600.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, okay. Now that I get.
They're not selling tickets to the general public. Southern Miss is not selling tickets to the general public.
That I understand is a reason for angst and being upset.
So basically, family and friends of players, Tennessee donors, and then whatever left over will go to Tennessee season ticket holders. My prediction is that Vol fans will still descend upon Hattiesburg, Mississippi like a horde and just probably sit outside the stadium somewhere and make life miserable for the people of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And we'll see.
Stop trying to manifest bad things on the people of Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Who's trying to manifest?
You just said they're going to make your lives miserable. And you said that Knoxville has better infrastructure than Hattiesburg just because Hattiesburg is in Mississippi.
I think that is what.
You have no idea.
I mean, should that not be the mission of away or home fans, right? Like, if your home fans are not making life miserable for the away team, then you're doing a bad job, right? You're doing a bad job as a fan base. Like, other teams should not want to come play in your place. If they enjoy coming to play in your place, then you probably don't have a great home field environment.
Like the Titans.
And vice versa. I think that should be the goal for away fans. Let's go and let's make Hattiesburg wish they didn't host the Hattiesburg Super Regional.
Oh, my God.
Oh,
when does it? Well, I mean, the Preds have worked against this, right? They won't sell you tickets if you're buying them online if you have like a certain zip code that's your credit card. Isn't there some kind of like digital blockade that keeps too many out of town fans from buying tickets to Preds games? I don't know what Nashville SC's policy on that is, but that's pretty funny. 615-737-1045 is how you weigh in. Jason in Murfreesboro is next. Hey, Jason.
Hey guys, I was going to weigh in again on the coach retiring. The facility's bigger. The coach retiring, so this is his last chance to take them to the final. So I can see that's the reason why that they're going to have it in Mississippi. But it gives the Southern Miss them upper hand because you're going to have all the people rallying to his last year as a coach. That's how I see it.
Well, Jason, let me put it to you this way. Like, all right, so Ray Lewis's retirement, right? Remember how big a deal Ray Lewis's retirement was? They were the road team in almost all of those games. They had one home game against the Colts and Andrew Luck. They won it. They went on to Denver, and I can't remember who they played in the AFC championship game specifically. But it's not like because Ray Lewis... New England. It's not because Ray Lewis had put out that he was retiring that they were going to give the Ravens home field advantage all through the playoffs. Like, it's just nonsense that there would be a retirement factored into this.
That's apples and oranges. Like, I don't...
Well, also college is way different than NFL. So
No, I understand. I just think that's if that was submitted to me, and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's not a committee in the NFL deciding who gets to host playoff games.
No,
this is a
fair.
very different scenario.
What I'm saying is that I don't think that should have any basis. Like, that should not be a part of the equation. Is that, yeah, he's been there for 23 years and now he's retiring.
No,
I
I
give a
agree.
bleep.
I agree with that. Yeah. I guess there is some human nature in this if it is just a committee of 10 people.
You're talking to the wrong person.
But, yeah, so I don't know how they came to this, but I'm sure Tony Vitello will try to use it to his advantage as much as he can.
So, with that being said, I mean, how does that match up? I don't know enough about Southern Miss baseball to see how that matchup might favor or not favor the University of Tennessee. Is there any general takeaways that we have from that being the matchup?
We'll get somebody that knows what they're talking about.
Okay, we'll call Mike Wilson
instead of me pretending like I do.
We've been faking it so well for 3 years.
have.
I thought that we might be able to do it for just a little bit longer.
Yeah, when it comes to the ins and outs of Southern Miss baseball, I'm probably out of luck.
Okay, fair enough. So why don't we pivot at that point? Well, let's pivot back to what's been the conversation of the day. Live Golf, it's not a buyout, but doesn't it feel that way? The reporting from CNBC this morning is that Live Golf, the PGA Tour, and the DP World Tour are all merging into one now Super Golf League, name TBD. But does it not feel like Live Golf, with the Saudi backing, the Saudi finances, has bought out the other two tours? While that may not be how it's phrased, while that may not be how it's positioned, hell, that's not what the commissioner is saying. I read to you, if you were listening in the first hour, I'll read a portion of it again. This statement made by the PGA Tour, by PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan. After his players are finding out on Twitter that they're merging with the league or the tour that they have been vehemently protesting, quote, in a statement made from Jay Monahan, the commissioner, to the PGA Tour members, today is a momentous day for your organization and the game of golf as a whole. The PGA Tour, your tour, is leading the formation of a new commercial entity to unify golf, one that sees the end of the disruption and distraction that has divided the men's professional game for the better part of 3 years. Does anybody believe him that the PGA is leading on this? That, I mean, of all the statements or all the messages that are problematic in this statement, least of which is today is a momentous day for your organization and the game of golf as a whole, go bleep yourself, that the PGA Tour, your tour, is leading the formation of a new commercial golf entity to unify golf. That's not based on what's been reported. The Saudis are leading. The Saudi money is leading. What's the line that SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey likes to use about money, Lucas?
Money does not lead, it follows.
Not in this case. Golf's following the bag. The money has dictated what's going to happen in golf. And so now the question becomes, who benefits more from the merger? Is it the PGA or is it Live? I think there's a couple of different ways that you can look at this. And, you know, of course, there are going to be individuals who benefit, who joined Live, now having this made mainstream, right? Think about Brooks Koepka, the mountaintop that Brooks Koepka is got to be on at this point. Phil Mickelson as well, but Brooks Koepka, who's just recently won a major. Think about how Brooks Koepka might feel today versus how Brooks Koepka felt a year ago when Rory McIlroy is getting to the podium and calling him out. We have that audio. Think about how different Rory McIlroy has sounded as of late versus how he sounded not that far removed once guys like Brooks and Dustin Johnson followed Phil Mickelson in joining Live.
Am I surprised? Yes, because of what he said previously. And I think that's why I'm surprised at a lot of these guys, because they say one thing and then they do another. And I don't understand that, and I don't know if that's for legal reasons or if they can't. I have no idea, but it's pretty duplicitous on their part to say one thing and then do another thing.
You're talking about something you said 2 years ago or a week ago?
The whole way through.
Yeah.
The whole way through, in public and private, all of it.
That's not going to feel good if you're Rory today.
Duplicitous.
Just the way he says it with that accent.
Indubitably.
I thought you stumbled over yourself while you were trying to say that. How do you say vehemently?
Vehemently.
Okay.
I believe.
I mean, think about how much different it feels to be Brooks Koepka today than it did yesterday. Maybe not even yesterday. Let's say 6 months ago, right? Brooks Koepka, if you're watching that full swing Drive to Survive type documentary series that Netflix is doing.
That's going to get interesting.
Well,
I'm sure it already is. I haven't seen it, but that's probably going to take a turn.
I've been watching it not like regularly, but I've been catching an episode here or there when I've run out of things on Netflix to watch. Because I do think the storylines are interesting, and I've just gotten to the portion where guys like Ian Poulter and Brooks Koepka are being interviewed specifically about their involvement with Live Golf and having to justify it to the cameras. And making, by the way, whether you agree with them or not, making very compelling cases for why they did it and why it was right for their family. And now, after being dragged for the better part of a year and a half, they get to turn around and be like, oh, yeah, I did it. Well, you have to do it too now. I just got more money than you did. I think the PGA benefits more from this than Liv does, if that makes any sense. I think that the PGA had such a tenuous grip based on how you saw the top golfers reacting to the PGA. Many of the top golfers going to Live, not guys past their prime, like we've talked about with Mickelson in particular. We thought Koepka might be one of them, but Koepka, still capable of going full robot and dominating a golf tournament the way that we've seen. It's not just the guys past their prime that are taking this money. Some of the top golfers went to Live, and it only felt like a matter of time before they just kept stuffing money in people's pockets before more and more people would feel comfortable, or at least put enough money in front of them to where they couldn't say no. There's only one golfer, really, who has enough money to where they can say no. It's Tiger. He did that. That offer was close to $1 billion. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say close to $1 billion if it's $700 million, but damn, closer to $1 billion than anything else that's out there. Right? That's the way that I talk about Patrick Mahomes' contract. It's a $500 million contract.
Does this just spell the end for Tiger? Like, if he's going to turn down that paycheck to not be a part of Live Golf, will he not just step away from the game to not be a part of Live Golf?
Man, that's a great question. Because you've already got to be like thinking about those things, but he tried to play this year, right? Not even the car wreck, the leg injuries that he sustained, the physical pain that he was unable to finish most recently with. Is this the thing that drives Tiger Woods out of golf? Man, I'd be fascinated to know what he thinks in an honest moment. And it's why I find it so hard to believe that none of these guys knew this was coming, right? If we're to believe the reporting of front office sports, and there's no reason not to at this point, based on the reaction that we're seeing from golfers on social media, that the PGA Tour did not inform any of its members that this was happening prior to the CNBC report dropping this morning. Do you think Tiger didn't know either? That's somebody who's got to be in communication with everybody at the highest levels of the sport. This is the biggest story in golf. Now, maybe something like Tiger Woods' extramarital affairs got more coverage than this will because, that's more widespread. That's more public versus, or not necessarily, it's not necessarily about the game of golf. It was about Tiger. It was about the TMZ celebrity element of it. So there was a lot more coverage of it. But in the world of golf specifically, where we're talking about folding in PGA, Live, and DP into one tour that's not yet been named or formatted, as far as we know, did Tiger Woods not know about this either? I'm sure we'll see a statement at some point today. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. There's something in my show rundown that just says your quarterback childhood is over. So I'll explain to you what that means coming up next. Welcome back here on this Tuesday. Hope you're feeling right, living well. Titans on the practice field just about 15 minutes from now. Mandatory minicamp getting underway. I'm going to slide on out there after we wrap up the radio show at 1 o'clock, catch the second half of practice, do the media availability, and we'll report back tomorrow. Chickaconquo going to be on the radio show tomorrow, so we'll catch up with tight end one, it would seem, at this stage of his career about everything that's been going on. Also, I have to this is probably a terrible way to tease this on the air, but Lucas, I have to talk to Chig about my new litter box. He's a
cat dad.
So is Josh Wiley. So tight end room, apparently strong proponents of our feline friends. That would make, Bert is no longer allowed on this radio show for the most part. But Bert, 2 cats, you, 1 cat, me, 2 cats, Chig, 1, I believe Wiley 1 as well. But I have many questions. I bought one of those litter robot type of things, and Chig, as a matter of fact, was the person who inspired me to buy it. Actually, my Instagram algorithm with a Chig promoted post. Chig in the litter box got me to buy it. I have many litter box questions for the Titans starting tight end.
So are you saying Bert's not allowed because he is with the morning show?
Yeah. Which, by the way, I love that I thought he actually had that job, and he doesn't actually have that job yet. He's just kind of there. So I don't know at what point, if he doesn't get the job, do I get to make fun of him? Because I feel like I should.
So how would you prevent Bert from coming onto this show?
It's a good question. It's been well documented. Famously, I have zero control over anything that happens actually on the air other than, not even to get myself on the air because you have the ability to, at any point, shut off my microphone, yes?
Right. So if he comes in here and I turn on his mic, he's on the show.
Because it's not like I have the buttons. I can see the commercial breaks here in front of me, but I can't physically hit them, which is why I don't understand why I need a mouse for this monitor in here. I would like some degree of control over everything that's going on, and I have none. So we'll see if he reemerges. Either way, litter box questions for the Titans starting tight end tomorrow at 11:15. Make sure you're there. Meanwhile, there was a thing that I saw on Ramon Foster's Instagram story yesterday, and it made me laugh because, it made me laugh initially, and then I also had the realization that I am aging at a rate that I was not prepared to at this point in my life, because it's a Instagram post that Ramon tweeted out about the number of quarterbacks who have retired in the last couple of years who are basically a part of your childhood. No more Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Big Ben, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, Ryan Fitzpatrick, just for the amount of teams that he's played for. It goes on and on. I don't have the post in front of me directly, but basically the idea that your quarterback childhood is over. Who's the elder statesman in the NFL right now at the quarterback position? Now that Tom Brady in his 40s,
Rodgers.
It's Aaron Rodgers at 39. So Rodgers is still like the last remnant of that collection of quarterback talent, right? But I don't even associate, and tell me how you feel about this, I don't associate Rodgers with that, even though he's the same age as those dudes. I don't consider Rodgers a part of that equation just because it took him so much longer to get on the field than the rest of them. Even Alex Smith started way before Aaron Rodgers did by nature of sitting behind Brett Favre. Even though he is the same age, I don't necessarily consider Aaron Rodgers with that same group of great quarterbacks, if that makes any sense.
I definitely do.
Okay.
Rodgers at the height of his career, Rodgers winning his Super Bowls when all of those guys are basically in their prime.
No, that's fair. And I think I almost separate it Peyton and Brady are in a different age demographic than Ben, Eli, Rivers, and I'd throw Rodgers in there as well.
For me, Stafford is kind of where it starts to cut off from that era.
So Stafford is the stop. I just need to pull up a list of quarterbacks.
Stafford was drafted in 2009 out of Georgia. So Stafford, for me, when you're talking about that era of Rivers, Manning, Roethlisberger, Brady, those guys are all gone. For me, Stafford is kind of the beginning of a new era of quarterback.
When was Andy Dalton drafted?
Around the same, maybe a year or two after Stafford, 10 or 11.
Because that's so, but I'm thinking about this in terms of decades, right? Is Stafford the last, notable quarterback of the 2000s, right? the early 2000s before we get into the 2010s, where you start to, I mean, Cam Newton is a younger player in this conversation, but Cam's
2011 draft pick.
His body has failed him in ways that are unsustainable, even though he still thinks that he can play. Matt Ryan is gone at this stage of his. Is Matt Ryan? Matt Ryan's not officially retired. He's just doing television for CBS.
He said he's not officially retired, right? He said this is not a retirement post, but I'm going to go be on TV this season.
So does that list hit you as hard? Like once we start to see Stafford and Dalton, and I mean Cam is not officially retired. Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins, guys in their mid-30s. Like I feel like that generation is going to hit me personally harder than the generation that just went before it.
Sure, but, that list of names does not stack up with that other list that was drafted between, I guess, 99 and 04 is what we're saying, or 05. I really think that it's this new generation is going to be probably put closer to that group of names than what you're talking about with Dalton and Cam Newton.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like
Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes, that's the new. That in 10, 15 years, people are going to be having that conversation about those guys. Or maybe 20 years. I don't know. These days, quarterbacks can play till they're 50. So,
well, no, that's just the one, and he didn't quite make it.
Didn't quite make it to 50.
Didn't quite make it, but
no, I think in 15 years, we're going to be talking about, oh, man, Pat Mahomes and Joe Burrow, this is their last season. Your quarterback childhood is over. That's going to be the conversation in whatever 23 plus 15
Well, it's just what you can.
2038.
Are you sure?
I think.
I swear to God. I guess it's just about what you regard as your quarterback childhood, right? Like, is the list of quarterbacks that I've just named, the guys who are on their way out, excluding Rodgers, is that your quarterback childhood? Do you consider that to be your quarterback childhood?
Absolutely. Manning, Roethlisberger, Rodgers, 100% in there.
The first Super Bowl I remember watching was Ben Roethlisberger against Kurt Warner. Cardinals, Steelers, Super Bowl is the first one that I can clearly and obviously remember. I can't remember if that came before or after Peyton Manning's Super Bowl.
For me, it's Steelers, Seahawks, Matt Hasselbeck, and Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah. That's Ben's first Super Bowl, and the Cardinals was his second.
Right.
If I remember correctly. Anyway, I just thought that was notable. Let's talk a little bit about the Titans. We'll see if we'll get into whether Kevin Byard, whether he's at the facility, whether he's expected to be at the facility. Now that mandatory minicamp is underway, I'll tell you why it is essential that he should be here. If he is not here, we'll get into that now that they are getting ready to hit the practice field in just about 8 minutes now. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
It is 11:58. Good morning from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. Breaking news this morning from CNBC. The PGA Tour has agreed to merge with Saudi-backed rival Live Golf. The deal will see the two move together as a larger golf enterprise. The Titans are on the field today for mandatory minicamp. Select players and head coach Mike Vrabel will meet with the media in the 2 p.m. hour. You can hear all of it live on Blaine and Mickey. College baseball was announced this morning. Tennessee will head to Hattiesburg to take on Southern Miss in Super Regionals this coming weekend. A 3-game series for a spot in Omaha begins on Saturday. The U.S. men's national team has announced its final roster for the CONCACAF Nations League semifinals coming up on June 15th against Mexico. Nashville Soccer Club defender Walker Zimmerman was named to the final 23. Meanwhile, Panama taking on Canada for the other semifinal. Nashville midfielder Anibal Godoy called up for the Panamanian national team. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour for us here in our day part. Blaine and Mickey coming up next. Don't you worry. We're happy to have you here one way or the other throughout the course of today's show. 615-737-1045 if you want to jump in. You've got Titans media availability coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. Like you heard Lucas say in his updates, you'll hear from Mike Vrabel and a variety of players. I told you that Chigakonkwo was going to be on our radio show tomorrow, so we'll catch up with tight end one then. Questions that you have before Titans mandatory minicamp. They should be on the field right now, as a matter of fact. I'll get out there for the second half of practice and all the press conferences and media availability that there will be. But what's the biggest question heading into mandatory minicamp this week? Seems fairly obvious, isn't it? Brent Doherty just walked in. I don't know why he's here so early. 3 hours ahead of 3HL. Hardest working man in show business, apparently. Brent is here at the studio for some reason. Came in and asked me, "Is KB there?" I said they expect him to be. So we'll find it. But there's a difference between, like, being there and practicing, right? This happened to Christian Fulton last week. Christian Fulton was reportedly in the building, not on the practice field. Does that mean that Christian Fulton wasn't attending or participating in Titans OTAs from the second week after not being here for the first? No, it just means he wasn't out on the practice field. So it's entirely possible that Kevin Byard's there today and just not physically on the practice field. But we will find out here rather shortly. In fact, I expect to receive an update. Well, those updates won't be able to be disclosed to you guys until 2 p.m. anyway when they finish their practice because of the restrictions on the reporting. No live tweeting from practice today. So you will not see that until 2 o'clock. But with Byard, how are we feeling about that? There's been no commentary there's been messaging on social media. I saw he congratulated Brett Kern on a great 15-year career. I saw that he had it was either a birthday wish or something that he was communicating to a teammate, current or past, at some point on Twitter that I've seen. But other than that, there's been one video of him working out with Logan Ryan when Logan Ryan was here for, I don't know if Logan still has his house here. So Logan Ryan was in Middle Tennessee and working out with Kevin Byard, and they put out a video on social media, and that's been about it. I was talking to a buddy of mine today, and he said he saw KB at the grocery store or something like that. Grocery store, gas station, something to that effect. And he said, "Hey, KB, tighten up." And the response that he got was, "Thanks, man." Does that make you feel good? If you hit a player with a player who's been asked to take a pay cut, you hit him with a "tighten up, man." And he's like, "Yeah, thanks." Casually, not as excited as you are. Is that reading too much into it? I don't know. I don't think there's going to be any issue with Kevin Byard if he's on the Titans roster this year. I don't necessarily think, does it feel like they didn't have a plan B when they asked him to take a pay cut? Other than, okay, I guess we'll move Elijah Molden to safety and try and figure this thing out. Because it almost struck me as there's been nothing that's happened since then. You don't approach a player about a pay cut without there being some kind of actionable situation, some kind of measures that you're prepared to take. And yet here's Kevin Byard still with that $19+ million cap hit. No word of trades or releases at this stage. We're past June 1st. So what does a Kevin Byard resolution look like? Does it matter if it's just kind of unpleasant or awkward for a season? And maybe Kevin Byard isn't a Titan beyond this year. I don't know. These are all very meta questions revolving around one specific one, which is he here today? The expectation is that he is going to be there today. So, by nature of that, he should have already been there. They have now, with the new collective bargaining agreement, structured it in a way. You remember when guys used to not show up and they'd technically be fined, but whenever they did show up, they would rescind the fine? Lawan was one of those. He started to hold out into training camp a little bit when he got his deal, had a couple of days' worth of fines, maybe a day worth of fines, got his contract, team rescinded it. Since then, in the new collective bargaining agreement, the teams have to stick to the fines for mandatory minicamp and for training camp. You can't just get that back. That's automatically deducted from from each individual player's paycheck, should they not be present. And I don't think Kevin Byard is that kind of casual with his money that way, in a way that he knows he's not going to get it back necessarily. Other than that, I mean, I would like to see Harold Landry on the field. I don't know if he's capable of that yet. There's been, it's been our understanding that Harold's been there for months, been there the entire offseason, working, rehabilitating. We're almost a year removed from the actual ACL tear itself, but we haven't seen him doing any on-field work during OTAs. We haven't seen Caleb Farley as he recovers from his back situation. We haven't seen Christian Fulton to date. Beyond that, I don't know that there's a bigger storyline to come out of mandatory minicamp than is Kevin Byard present, and what's Kevin Byard going to say should he be made available to the media, which he should be made available to the media, whether that's today, tomorrow, or Thursday. All 3 days open for the media to be able to consume. I think that what Kay Oldham is saying in the F&M Bank chat, he says, I understand if you dig in and try to find any kind of information, the Titans will try and ban you or block your access. So we get to learn Malik Willis's favorite breakfast cereal. That's a pretty funny comment. But, I mean, just to kind of give you guys context for what the restrictions are, because I understand why that would be frustrating, the idea that, yes, there's all kinds of things that I see on a daily basis, and I can tell you about 10% of them. I'm going to read you the restrictions on the reporting just so you have an understanding of why you get the kind of information you do or why you're not getting as much information as you expect to. The practice is open in its entirety, but you can report on general team and individual performances. What you cannot report on is competitive advantage, where players are lining up, substitutions, scheme-related observations on offense, defense, or special teams. You are also not permitted to report on coach-to-player or player-to-player interaction and conversations on the practice field. So basically, when they're on the field and talking to one another, it's off the record for us. At this point, the new mistakes element of it, that's basically what you're looking for. They're still not pads. Offensive line, defensive line, running game, I'm still not sure what to make of it. There's nothing really to be learned of it. Mike Vrabel keeps telling you sometimes it looks like real football. That's great. But it's more about the absentees or lack thereof today and how much opportunity that's going to provide for guys who might be here if those individuals I mentioned are either not there or not participating on the field at the time. Guys like Trey Avery at the corner spot if Christian Fulton is still not practicing. We're not sure, or we won't be able to tell you until 2 p.m. if he is practicing at this point. There's a lot of different pieces that this impacts. It's more impactful for the offense than it is the defense. They haven't changed their coordinator. There's some new faces on that side of the ball, but beyond Lori Locust, the assistant defensive line coach, and Chris Harris, the defensive backs coach, I don't think there's another new member of the Titans, like a Titans position coach that's new. So Kevin Byard is still working with Scott Booker. That's unchanged. Still meeting with Scott Booker on Zoom and going through all the necessary installation or changes that they might be making year over year. And from that, I think there's just a general like, okay, what is this offense going to look like? Is there anything more that we can learn about the offense this week, and how much better can they look as a unit? Because all the things right now, it's skewed towards the offense. I know many of you have seen, if you're following the Titans on social media, they've been putting out a lot of you noticed a lot more Traylon Burks highlights in those things. I don't know how often you watch those, Lucas. A lot more Traylon Burks highlights and all of that. And those drills, by the way, these 7-on-7, these practices in particular, they're going to be skewed towards the offense. So should Traylon Burks not be looking like an all-world wide receiver out there right now? That's a bigger story than if he was, I think. For the same reason that, quarterbacks, how good or how poor they look in OTAs, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to be what defines their season necessarily. It's just this is the time that it's easiest for them to look their best. No pass rush. No real contact, no real feel, or no real fear of somebody who's coming across the line of scrimmage to take your head off, and all those things that can develop. Russell asks in the F&M Bank chat, have we heard anything about Nissan Stadium turf? Less than 3 months from the Vols opener. Ooh, that's a good question. Are they going to have the turf field in at Nissan by the time that Tennessee and Virginia open there? One would assume, because the Titans, I guess the Titans don't have a home opener or a week one opener. They open on the road in New Orleans. I would have to assume that playing surface would be implemented by the time that the Vols are at Nissan Stadium, though, right?
Yeah, Titans are home against the Chargers September 17th.
That's week 2.
Yeah, so almost exactly 2 weeks after Tennessee plays UVA.
But do you know anything to that effect?
No, I don't know what surface they'll be playing on. You would assume it's
2 weeks is not enough time to flip that.
I imagine it'll be the new surface. So Tennessee and Virginia will be breaking in that new turf.
Well, and that always, those things are always regarded very well by Vols fans who could still see the Titans flaming thumbtack logo in the middle of the field, painted with the Vols logo painted over it for the Music City Bowl or something like that. That always makes me laugh. Lucas posed a question. Well, I'll let you tease this since it was your question. I don't want to steal your thunder. I feel like I do that enough on a regular basis. Quarterbacks. We didn't talk about them a ton last week because I didn't think there was near enough fuss that SportsCenter seemed to think of Will Levis or Malik Willis or anything going on around the quarterbacks at practice. But Lucas, the question that you asked me this morning, why don't you relay it for the audience?
Well, the biggest question going in is, will Byard be there, right? Yes. That is the number one question, and that question should get answered pretty quickly.
It will have been answered as of now, yes.
So then I thought about Mike Vrabel after Will Levis was drafted, kind of laying out the current hierarchy of Titans quarterbacks. Tannehill 1, Willis 2, Levis 3 until proven otherwise, right? So how long does it take for Will Levis to move up to the 2 spot, and is it possible for him to do that before training camp?
It's an interesting question. We can dive into that coming up next. So Lucas has posed the question, what would it take for Will Levis to become the backup quarterback before the Titans come back from their summer vacation for training camp? Is there anything that he can do in the 3 days that consist of mandatory minicamp, today, tomorrow, and Thursday, and 3 more days? I mean, in theory, we'll see if they break early to take them bowling or something like that, go to Topgolf on the 3rd day of the final week of OTAs. Remember, the structure is different this year. Mandatory minicamp this week, and then they will have 1 more additional week of OTAs where normally it's been rattle off the voluntary stuff, get to mandatory minicamp. That's what ends the offseason.
Maybe they can come to Kings Bowl with us.
Oh, yes. If you would like to come to Kings Bowl with us, I know that is a favorite of Titans players, Kings Bowl in Franklin. A lot of them live out that way. So I know they used to, Derrick Henry and Deion Lewis used to do a competition, a push-up competition based on who had the higher score in bowling at Kings Bowl. And I think Deion Lewis got the better of Derrick a couple of times. One of the few places. Anyway, we are having an event at Kings Bowl. It's not that far away. It's June the 22nd. Tickets available at 1045thezone.com. Those ticket proceeds go to benefit the great people at Home Street Home, a wonderful charitable organization that benefits the homeless community, the unhoused community here in Middle Tennessee by providing materials, tents, heaters, water, food, all these different things to make sure that those who have the least among us can still have something to call their own. It's great work done by Home Street Home. It is tax deductible, this ticket purchase, because the portion of that goes to the charity. And, of course, it also comes included with food and a drink ticket at Kings Bowl, as well as your shoe rental and all the different things that you will need. What was that?
Need some WD-40 for these mics.
What the hell?
You hear that?
I thought you were bored with me or something. I thought you were making a noise. I thought it was a sound drop.
Oh, man.
Is my plug for the charitable event that we're throwing on June the 22nd at Kings Bowl? By the way, tickets available at 1045thezone.com. Am I boring you back there?
No, it was actually awesome last year.
It was
we
so
had
cool, wasn't it?
Such a good time. There were so many people out there, listeners, friends of the show, people that joined the show, Robert, people that work at Cumulus, sales.
Robert, you are right to make Robert a separate entity, right? Friend of the show, people who are on the show.
Friend of the show,
listeners
Robert Walsh.
to the show. No, not friend of the show. Just Robert Walsh.
Get off his back. Get off Robert
He was
Walsh's
just in
back.
here bothering me. I said I don't have to look at you anymore. Get out.
Where do people need to go to get tickets?
1045thezone.com.
All inclusive, right? Like you said.
Yep.
You get to play, you get the shoes, you get the drink, you get the food, all that stuff. It's going to be a really good time at Kings Bowl.
And you get to feel good about it.
Yes, and it goes to a fantastic cause. What was the date?
June 22nd at Kings Bowl in Cool Springs.
And I highly encourage you get your tickets because you never know who might show up.
I love Peyton Manning.
What?
Special guest? I don't know.
What are you doing?
It might be a special surprise guest out there.
What are you? No, wait. You can't do this because I haven't.
You got to get a ticket and come to find out.
Who are you getting special guests? Because that's not something that I can trust you to do.
I'm just saying you don't know who's going to be there.
Why are you? Yeah, it's going to be us. I don't know
who might show up.
You're putting pressure on me to go out and recruit my friend and other friends to come and show up at this thing now. Is that what you're trying to do? I'm not crazy about that.
Just never know who you're going to see.
Okay.
Out at Kings Bowl.
I don't understand why you're doing this to me.
1045thezone.com.
It's going to be Bert. The special guest is going to be Bert. You can bowl with him. Keep him off my back for 20 minutes. So, what would it take for Will Levis to become the backup quarterback before training camp? Is there anything that this man can do? Well, Charles London, the new quarterbacks coach and pass game coordinator, was asked specifically about the development of Will Levis, the second-round pick, and this is what he had to say last week.
I think Will's done a good job of just coming in and keeping his mouth shut and going to work. And obviously he played in a pro-style offense in Kentucky, so he's been in the huddle, he's called plays, he's been under center, and I think that kind of helped him with his transition so far. But we just asked the same thing that we asked Will for the other quarterbacks, just come out every day and get better and try to improve on our mistakes from the day before.
Okay, that's fine. Fairly general. If I was to say to you, I don't think that there's anything that he can do right now to establish himself concretely as the backup quarterback before training camp. If I was to say to you, I don't think there's anything that's going to move Mike Vrabel off of his draft night line, which is Ryan's the starter, Malik will be the 2, Will be the 3. That has been now he might see second team reps at mandatory minicamp in ways that he hasn't seen in the OTAs, but that doesn't make him the second-string quarterback. I just don't think there's anything that's going to concretely move him up the depth chart this early. That is something that has to be earned when there's a heightened level of competition, when they see him against things like Minnesota and New England, who they'll do the joint training camp practices with. We have a date on, well, we obviously have a date on the Minnesota thing because the Minnesota, we know the game. But we have not had confirmation. The Titans have not officially confirmed that they're doing joint work with the Patriots as of yet. Mike Vrabel said they were still working through some logistics on that. So I don't think there's anything that he can do. And I think that's fine for now. You know, I think at some point you would like to see him establish himself as the backup quarterback. And let me ask you a question, or I'd ask the audience this. Is it wrong that I already trust him more than I trust Malik?
Why is that?
Just because he looks like he can run an offense better than Malik Willis can.
So what evidence do you have for that, other than his time at Kentucky and the offense that he came from?
Precious little right now, to be honest with you, which is why I'm trying to flesh out any bias that I think I may be carrying out on the air in ways that are unfair, because I don't think that's fair what I'm doing to Malik.
And this offense stands to look different than what Levis ran at Kentucky.
Agreed. And based on what Malik ran, apparently, doesn't it sound like they're doing a little bit more ground up than you might have anticipated? Based on all the messaging around this? I know we touched on that yesterday, but it does feel like a lot different.
Terminology, I mean, I think, and I'll try to find it from Tannehill a couple weeks ago, where something to the effect of Ryan Tannehill talking about the offense being completely different.
So I'm trying to flesh out, maybe it's because I have seen Malik play and I haven't seen Will Levis play in an NFL game yet. Because I already have it in my head, and this, like I said, it doesn't mean it's right. I'm just trying to figure out whether what I'm doing is wrong. There's been a part of me, I think, that is willing to trust Levis more just by nature of having watched Malik play. And I don't think that's a fair thing that I'm doing at all to Malik. But then there's the offense in and of itself. And I want you to hear from Ryan Tannehill about just how different the offense he considers to be.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a big difference, right? New terminology, new concepts, huge changes, but, fresh line of thinking on things. So just having to get up to speed with how we're doing things, what we're calling things, different ways we're attacking the defense. And that's what we're doing right now, is using this time when we're not going against the defense to just try to learn the offense, get accustomed to the new terminology, the new terms, the new routes, and be able to translate that onto the field as we go.
So Lonzo in the F&M Bank chat says Levis simply being drafted, is concrete confirmation he will be quarterback too. Now, I do think that is an inevitability that we are trending towards, but concrete right now, it's simply not the case. He's not the backup quarterback right now. They started the season today. He would not be the backup quarterback. Whether you agree with that or not, I would frankly disagree with that. But based on what the coaching staff is doing and how they are divvying up the reps, the way that it's been right now is it's been Malik with the twos. Like I said, it could change at mandatory minicamp this week. And then there's the idea of what West V Mountains is saying. It's not unfair to recognize how inept Malik was. The only thing that I think, so let me answer your question this way, Lucas. The only thing that I think can make Will Levis the backup quarterback before training camp is the bottom just falling out of Malik. Like visibly, right? Of it being not just not having improved year over year, but being worse. There's been no evidence of that in OTAs or anything concrete enough in OTAs for them to make any kind of drastic decision that way, and it would be drastic. Tyler says you don't draft a quarterback in the second round to be a third string. You just don't. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not sitting here arguing on behalf that there is no circumstance under which Will Levis will not be the backup quarterback in 2023. I very much believe him to be the backup quarterback when the season starts. We are not at a place where they are treating it like he is the backup quarterback yet. Now, you can take issue with the way that that's being handled. Like Jags fans, right, who were furious, rightfully so, at Urban Meyer for splitting reps in Trevor Lawrence's rookie year at training camp reps, not OTA reps, but training camp reps, the most meaningful preseason reps. Splitting reps between Gardner Minshew and the number 1 overall pick when everybody knew that Trevor Lawrence was going to be the week 1 starter for Jacksonville, and he was. That's a frustration that you are entitled to have. You can be frustrated that they're running Malik with the 2s still. And you can say, well, what sense does that make? If you know he's going to be the 3, if you know he's going to be the 3, then why is he running with the 2s? Well, they're telling you they don't know he's going to be the 3 yet. They're telling him they don't know he's going to be the 3 yet. Don't you want them to still have to compete? That's the thing that I think is being lost in this. Will Levis doesn't want that job handed to him. The competitor in Will Levis, the competitor in Malik Willis, the competitor in Ryan Tannehill, those jobs are earned. That's the whole infrastructure of football. Earned, not given. How you manage the adversity, how you rise above to claim your spot, how you beat out the other competition. You want Will Levis to just simply, by nature of being drafted in the second round, I know it's your backup quarterback position, not your starter, but you don't want him to have to fight for it at all? I don't understand the logic in that. And if I was you, I would be grateful that my coaching staff wasn't taking the approach with that either. It's different. If Willis isn't present on the roster, of course it's different. If it's Mo Hassan out there as the 3 instead of Malik, if it's Austin Davis or Deshaun Kaiser or any number of these names that have rotated through the Titans' backup quarterback room in the last couple of years, if it's Logan Woodside, it's different. But Malik is a third-round pick. Doesn't mean that, that he's entitled to anything. Hell, a second-round pick doesn't mean Will Levis is entitled to anything. But I just don't understand the logic in people who just want this to be as they see it or as they think it's going to work itself out rather than letting the competition of it play out on the practice field. Brian on YouTube says, I'm still taking the stand that Malik never received a fair shot. Between the fact that he had Todd Downing as the offensive coordinator, a practice squad offensive line, and a practice squad receiving corps, how do you think that is fair? Well, I don't think it's fair. I just think it's life. I'm sure I don't necessarily know how to, what a metaphor would be to indicate a degree of unfairness in something like that. But that's like if we had started the radio show during the pandemic, right? When everybody was still on Zoom. And everybody was still scattered to the wind instead of the first week we were on the air. I think I was one of the first people back in the building, if I remember correctly. I think Ramon and Jason were in here first because they were new too. But that had been if we just started the radio show on Zoom. And the radio show was terrible because Lucas and I didn't know each other. We didn't. I mean, you and I had we ever talked? Had we ever met before we started doing this?
Not really.
Together, right? I mean, it's, whether you think it's going well or not is a different matter, but I think it's
on paper.
All things considered, yes, literally on paper, thank God. But whether you consider us to be good at what we do now is a different question. But had we started the radio show on Zoom as opposed to doing it in studio and allowing us to get our bearings, that would have been unfair. You know what else it would have been? It would have been life. Tough. Figure it out. Make it work. He got far more opportunities than many, many other players in his position. There's no better example than the guy he got benched for, Josh Dobbs, waiting 6 years to get his first NFL start. Malik had 3. 3 starts, 8 appearances. Figure it out. Now, the argument I would be most willing to accept that Malik Willis, that you would use as an excuse for Malik is Todd Downing. I think that is one that I'm comfortable kind of giving people, given that it seemed like they had those discussions and how much the DUI itself impacted Todd Downing no longer being the offensive coordinator here, the fact that they rode that out for the remainder of the season. But obviously there was all kinds of internal strife going on around that. That couldn't have been an easy situation to be dropped into, and also tough. That is what it is. I'm not going to go above and beyond for reasons that are being listed by a couple other people in the YouTube chat. Malik never hitting 100 yards in a game, and then Dobbs going for over 200 in his first start is why no one believes in Malik. That's from Fort. Dominic says, how are we trying to defend a guy who can't throw for 100 yards in a game? Levis is in a competition, quote unquote, with Malik. Should be scary to say. Makes Levis sound trash. Well, I think that's an extreme reaction. Of course it's a competition. Ryan Tannehill is technically in competition. Ryan Tannehill's job is to make sure that he wins the competition and holds on to his spot. They all come in every year. It's all competition. Name a player who is guaranteed their starting job this year. Guaranteed their starting job this year. Beyond Jeff and Kevin Byard, who I would answer to that question is Aaron Brewer guaranteed to be the Titan center just because he's been the backup center? No. Is Andre Diller guaranteed to be the left tackle for the Tennessee Titans? Absolutely not. There's plenty of reason to think that might be worth being skeptical about.
I mean,
I know I'm being
Harold Landry and Derrick Henry. There are guys that are guaranteed their spots.
I forgot about
Traylon Burks,
Stonehouse.
Yeah,
there's a couple.
There's a few in there.
But I mean, are we not talking about Traylon Burks being in a degree of competition? I think Traylon Burks should feel that he has to compete. He has to prove that he's not the guy who was gasping and wheezing his way through training camp practices last year. Traylon Burks has to show us that he is worthy of being considered one of those guys. You just put Traylon Burks in the same category as Derrick Henry, Kevin, and I know we're talking about a different situation, but
for Traylon Burks, it's about proving that he can be the guy.
Yes,
not proving whether or not because Traylon Burks is going to start. He's the best wide receiver in that room. It's about proving if he can be a wide receiver one because this team needs him to be.
Jael says Downing is about to single-handedly wreck Aaron Rodgers' Hall of Fame career.
Wait, who?
Todd Downing. He's their he's their quarterback's coach.
Passing game coordinator.
Yeah. I wonder how much can you imagine if Todd Downing goes through an Aaron Rodgers rehabilitation and turns out as another offensive coordinator?
I mean, how much of a voice is Downing getting in that room when Rodgers is going to be reunited with Nathaniel Hackett? Something Rodgers wanted.
He's a pass game coordinator. It's not inconsequential. And you know that Aaron Rodgers had to have some say in that staff. Like, it's not like he's got an issue with Todd Downing or Keith Carter, a former member of the Titans coaching staff who's also in New York. I'm going to be fascinated to see how, if there is a dialogue that comes from Todd Downing being Aaron Rodgers' quarterback coach and passing game coordinator, because one would assume that they're going to have some degree of passing success just by nature of having one of the most talented quarterbacks out there. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. So it's a long way of saying I don't think there's anything Will Levis can do to leapfrog Malik right now. And it's not just because that Will Levis may be the better option. Will Levis may be the thing that gives them the best chance to succeed if Ryan Tannehill were to go down. But it's like Roger McCreary. Roger McCreary was the last corner on the depth chart through most of training camp. And then what was Roger McCreary as soon as the season started? Starting outside
available.
Yeah, he was out there. It's available. It's true. But at a time, by the way, when Caleb Farley was still available.
Molden was not, but yes.
Molden was not. Correct. What I want to see this week, now that we have a full sample size, this I think is going to be the best opportunity to judge those two players who we've spent a lot of time talking about, Willis and Levis. We now have the best opportunity to get into a discussion about, all right, we have now a full week of seeing them, not just one day out of 3, not just a few here or there, not just, all right, they had one bad day, but that's the one day that we saw, so let's talk about it as if they're having a bad OTAs. This is going to be the most full sample size that we have to see those two young quarterbacks and all of these players who are going to be out there and available to make that kind of assessment. So let's have this same conversation. Why don't we do this on Friday again, Lucas? Let's have this same conversation after I've been able to see a full week of both of them and circle back to it then, because I may feel differently at this point.
What's the biggest difference in the work they're going to be getting at mandatory minicamp versus what we've seen them get at voluntary OTAs? Not much?
No. I mean, it's still, they'll still run team drills. They'll still run 7-on-7. They'll still be individual. The practice length, like the actual length of the practice time, where that might change from phase 1 to phase 2, that's the same. There's no pads still. I don't think there's anything there. Like, it's still the same sample size for OTAs. That's what I'm saying. Like, I should be able to get the best measure of the two of them that I've been able to get, because it's not just one day, all right, and then you're back out in the wild. Get out of here. Last call for phone calls if you got them. We will update the polls, get you out of here on this Tuesday, and I'll slide over to Titans practice. Oh, there's a fight. Speaking of OTAs and temperatures getting raised, tell you about a fight taking place in some OTAs coming up next. No. Don't run out of here after you've just done what you've done. The camera was probably on. I hope that caught you. Oh, what? You're trying to protect him?
I don't know what you're talking about.
A red flash just streaked literally across the studio.
You're such a narc. You know that? Trying to protect my boy.
Why? You don't protect me.
That's true.
It's not helpful.
That's true.
Unbelievable. No, there's no, I don't have any sympathy for either of the two of you back there. Every time I turn on the microphone, it's me against the two of you. How you don't understand this dynamic by the time that we're almost 3 years into this. Not quite 3 years. Feels like it every day. But how the two of you don't understand that is something. They just showed a clip from 104.5 The Zone on NFL Network. Did you see that?
What, just now?
Yeah.
No. What was it?
I don't know. They're talking about the Saints. Oh, I wonder if it's Greg Williams.
What do you mean a clip from 104.5 The Zone?
It just said 104.5 The Zone. Like I looked up at the NFL Network clip. No, forward a little bit, Bert.
Wait, no. Dude, you got 15 minutes left of your show, dude. What are you talking about?
I would like to see. It just caught my attention. And if you're going to be here screwing around with the televisions in here, I would like to see what it was that they were referencing.
Like our studio, or
no? It just looked like on 104.5. I think you've gone back too far. I think you've gone back.
I think you're going to have to look at angry Drew Brees' face. While I'm here, I want to let you know something.
What?
I am putting a bounty beside my name. I will not appear on this show again until my demands are met.
Your enjoyment of hearing yourself talk as of late is the thing that keeps you coming back to a microphone. Doesn't matter what day part.
Don't go down this road. No, not from you. Not from you.
No. That's the expectation is for me to be self-involved. The monster, you are responsible for this. You are as much Dr. Frankenstein as I am in this situation. In fact, you are probably more responsible because you're the one too scared to do the stuff that Bert's doing on a regular basis, so you're the one egging him on.
He is Jekyll and I am Hyde, but that is neither here nor there. You have not asked me about my demands.
I'm trying to figure out why you're here, not here nor there. I'm trying to figure out why you're here.
He has demands.
I have demands, and they will be met. The Pokemon cards that are in your closet, in the shoebox. I want them, and I was going to have them.
You want to give people some context for what you're talking about?
Buck, maybe a week ago, let me know that his mother had given him a shoebox filled with Pokemon cards. Pokemon cards that he cares nothing about.
Not at all.
And I have watched those cats, those felines, those little mongrels you keep inside your house.
Trash pandas.
I have been on this show. I have put myself in a terrible light.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Oh, you are claiming that you are aggrieved for the positions that you regularly put yourself in? That's your demand? So what are you claiming, that you are going to try and sell these? For further context, hang on before you get even more further astray from a conversation that has really just been between you and I over text, not anything that the radio audience cares about whatsoever. My mother is basically using my home that I've purchased as a storage unit. She's dumping all the stuff that she doesn't want of mine anymore at my house every time she makes a trip down to Nashville. This also included a box full of, because at some point in my young life, Pokemon cards were a thing. You go to you get them at the grocery store checkout line, right? You buy a pack of Pokemon cards. You go to the bookstore, Books A Million. Are Books A Million even still a thing?
Yes.
I haven't seen one in a long time. But there's a giant shoebox of all of them filled at my house, and Bert wants them. For what purpose?
I want to look at them and feel nostalgic.
I'd like to something.
I'd like to look at them in a good light and kind of shine the holographic portion of it, and just feel good generally. But it does not matter.
You don't want to flip them?
And look at the back. What, the side that's
no, flip them for cash.
Oh no. I am a Pokemon aficionado.
When he sets up to do primetime, there are Pokemon figures around him.
There are not figures. They are collectibles. There's nothing, just because they are figurines.
You are a 29-year-old man.
It's like Steve Carell's character in 40-Year-Old Virgin. They're not toys.
They're not toys. They're collectibles, and I've never taken them out of the box. So, Buck, if you want me on your show.
I don't.
Ever again. I need that box of Pokemon cards delivered to this studio, or else Bert is going bye-bye.
You know where you can find them?
Where?
In the shadows. Get your ass there.
Oh, a Charizard.
Polls.
I don't know who you are, but I know what it's time for. A poll update on the Buck Rising Show. Here's a young man with a very particular set of skills. With the final numbers, here's Buck Rising Show correspondent and producer, Lucas Pansica.
He's just doing that because he saw one of those Charizard cards went for $100,000 the other day. That's why he wants that box full of Pokemon cards.
I'm afraid he's going to get wise, and he's talking about if my demands aren't met, I'll be gone. But he's going to reverse that, and if his demands are not met, he will just always be here. I feel like Bert's going to be like Thanos, where his goal is to produce every single show on 104.5 The Zone and just collect them like Infinity Stones.
Well, then we must actively work to keep him away from that spot.
What made you say, oh no, over the weekend? Polls, by the way, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on any non-specialty new Ford. Oh, we didn't get to this. Isaiah Rodgers betting through an associate. The Colts wide receiver, correct?
Quarterback.
Specialist. Cornerback,
He's a
right,
corner.
But also a specialist, right, in the kick return game.
Yeah, but he's probably their best DB, to be honest with you. Based on, like, Rocky Sin is no longer there anymore. Like, he's probably their best remaining corner right now.
Dumbest thing in sports this week is tomorrow, so
we'll
I imagine we'll have time for Isaiah Rodgers.
Indeed, we will. Yeah, that story is a mess. We're going to have a gambling expert, as a matter of fact. You hear me talk about the gambling clinic all the time with Dr. James Whalen. Dr. James Whalen is going to come on the show and explain to us what's happening in professional sports, not just professional sports, but college as well.
Who benefits more from the merger, PGA or LIV? 75% say LIV. Andrew replies and says the fans are the ones who benefit the most.
No, I mean, the fans benefit the most if they don't care about everything that's going on with the political elements of this that are involved. But I would say that PGA benefits way more than LIV. LIV is just going to continue to drown them in money if they weren't going to acquiesce. And now they've gotten everybody, European and American, to bend the knee.
And who is conceding, PGA or LIV? 86% say PGA. Puka says they both are. They were both playing chicken discovery in court with case. I don't know how Puka worded that. They're both playing chicken discovery in court with case. Might have lasted years with potential leaks.
Yeah, I think that is that's something that we don't know the answer to, right? Is this more of a settlement because of what the litigation might have looked like? That's a possible thing, or the possible consideration that you have to take into this.
Tennessee baseball having to travel to Southern Miss. Collusion or no collusion? 56% say collusion.
Yeah, that's about right.
Puka replies, says Southern Miss coach retiring. I don't know why I love Puka, but I don't know why she keeps hammering this point that the coach is retiring and why that would have anything to do with whether or not Southern Miss travels for a super regional.
I hope it doesn't, but it may.
Manning Morgan says, just win, baby. The Rebs didn't host anything last year. Talking about Ole Miss, who went, I believe, 1 and done or 2 and done at the best in Hoover in the SEC tournament. Did not host at any point and then got to Omaha and won.
Collusion. Collusion. Clearly collusion.
What is the biggest Titans storyline heading into minicamp? Brian says, can they please add a wide receiver? Joseph says, who wins the left tackle job? If it's Dillard, the offensive line has more upside. If he flops, we're in for another ugly year.
No, I think you'll hear this in a portion of the install whenever that portion comes out. Greg Cosell said that Andre Dillard is the most important player on the Titans this year.
Those are the polls.
That's the show. If you want to get in, Blaine and Mickey are coming up next. I'm going to jump on out to Titans practice, and I'll tell you everything that I saw and heard tonight on Prime Time. If you don't catch me there, radio show starts at 10. See you guys.